So, welcome back to On the Shelf, where we look at our favorite movies, we take them off the shelf, and we talk about it. And first of all, before we get into it, let's just say welcome back to the Dan Meister, who's been on holiday in the
A
frickin'
long
pandemic.
one.
A long one. A long one. Good to have you back, though, buddy, and
Hey,
everything.
great to be back, Chase. Thank
And
you.
it's kind of like, let's see, we finished off for the summer, and now it's Christmas time. So we figured we had to
Mhm.
do the biggest Christmas movie of all time, in my opinion, anyway. And that's It's
And
a
mine
Wonderful
too.
Life. Yeah,
Yep.
well, I love this movie, man. So I love this as a pick and everything. And before I gush all about it, why don't you gush first? Gush first. Why don't you gush first, man?
Yeah, I'll gush and then I'll facts right now.
Well, yeah.
So it was originally a book called the Greatest Gift,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was actually the guy who wrote it. He wrote it like in the late 30s originally. He had a dream about Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
All right.
And it influenced him to write the book. And yeah, we could talk about that a little later. That the movie is kind of a Christmas Carol like, right? You
Yeah.
could see all the influences throughout the movie and the script. It was then
Well,
published in
well,
a
well. You had Potter as Scrooge, wasn't it? So yeah,
sure as Potter, but also the whole thing of like, what if I never existed? You know what I mean? Right?
yeah,
Which is like when the third ghost shows up in Scrooge.
yeah.
Um, So it was then published in Good Housekeeping in December 1944, and they gave it a new title called "The Man Who Wasn't Born."
Wow. Okay, that's a good title.
Yeah, and the author actually based Bedford Falls on his hometown in New Jersey called Califon, which is some small town like in central western New Jersey. I've never been to it. I never heard about it before I looked this up. But the author said he did base it on that town. And then there's even a bridge there that he based the bridge where George
Oh yeah, the
jumped
bridge where
off
he has
of.
to make a decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that there is a bridge there. There is a town there that's all based on what's happened in this wonderful life. RKO, the movie studio back then that doesn't exist anymore and hasn't for decades, they bought the rights of the movie for $10,000 in 1945 for Cary Grant to star in.
Wow. Well, wasn't it also they decided to call the company Liberty Films?
Right, but no, I'll continue on with that. So
Okay. All right. All
basically,
right.
Cary Grant decided not to do it,
Hmm.
and then Frank Capra started a company in 1945 as well called Liberty Films. He had come back from the war, and he had partnered up with the directors William Wyler and George Stevens, and they started this company called Liberty Films, and they then bought the rights also for $10,000 from RKO to make the movie. Um, and then there was an early draft that had George Bailey as a politician.
Really?
Yeah,
Kind of
it's
like
like
Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
kind of,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it changed and evolved over the times. There were at least 8 different screenwriters. Over the course of
Yeah.
as it was back then, or it
As you
still is
do.
today, right?
Yeah. 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 Of
As you
course.
do. Henry Fonda was also considered.
He would have been kind of young, wouldn't he?
Probably same age as Jimmy Stewart
Well,
at
they
that
both
point.
were really too old to be in high school.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. But Jimmy Stewart could kind of pull it off in a way. Uh, Mary, the character of
Donna
Mary,
Reed. Donna Reed.
Donna Reed, she was. They actually considered Olivia de Havilland,
Hmm.
Jean Arthur, who was from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and Ginger Rogers.
All very good.
Yeah, but none of them I don't think would have it's like that movie's so perfect in the casting. You can't, even if they're all these other wonderful actors, you just can't really see anybody else in those roles, right? You
No.
know, um, and believe it or not, Potter. There were a whole bunch of other actors that were considered for Potter, but the one actor that everybody still knows today that was considered was Vincent Price.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
I can kind of see that, even though Lionel Barrymore still is
It still feels early for me. I mean, some of these acting choices, but yeah, I mean, Lionel Barrymore. I mean, come on, you
Oh,
know.
and Bert the cop,
Hmm?
who was, and he was. I think it was sort of right just when he was becoming the star, or right before he became a star. Robert Mitchum.
Wow, wow.
Robert Mitchum. Uh, it was
I can't see that
now
at all. It's
Bedford.
too small of
Yeah.
a part for him.
Well, it's just sort of like right before he kind of
Yeah,
became
yeah,
famous.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So Bedford Falls was shot at the RKO Movie Ranch,
Yeah.
all the exteriors
Yeah.
in Encino, California. So for people who don't know Los Angeles and
Isn't this the
California,
ranch where they
basically,
did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
no. Actually, they tore all this stuff down in 1954.
Oh, okay, all
So
right.
it's in the San Fernando Valley, and they just build a whole bunch of houses, and they also put like some kind of local park
Yeah.
there. But to give everybody a context, it's like basically it's like everybody knows where Hollywood is. So if you were
Obviously.
going to get in a car and drive from Hollywood, you would drive over a hill and go to that place and be about a half-hour drive. So that's where it is.
Yeah, got
Oh,
it.
that's where it was. And
Yeah.
that the actual town of Bedford Falls was built for a movie called Cimarron in 1931.
Yeah, Cimarron,
And
Cimarron, whatever you look at it.
yeah, and it stayed up the whole time. It was the main street was 300 yards long. It was 75 feet, 75 storefronts that were all pre-existing for other movies that were built
Yeah.
there.
Great.
The swimming pool still exists. So that whole thing, that's a real swimming pool. That actually was
Yeah.
shot at Beverly Hills High School. And so that pool is still there. It was always there. So I guess if anybody ever wants to go to Beverly Hills High School, if they let you in, you can see the pool. The movie had 3 different DPs, even though I think one's credited, but they had 3 different DPs,
Wow.
directors of photography, so people who don't know.
Yeah.
It won an Oscar for developing new snow. All the snow you see in the movie was a brand new way of laying it out that they had never done before.
Kind of like
There were,
cornflakes.
what's that?
It's kind of like
No,
cornflakes.
cornflakes.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
later.
And then as far as like different versions, let's see. There was a musical version in the 80s that was written by the guy who wrote all the music to Sesame Street, Joe Raposo.
Hmm.
There was a Tiny Toons version. There was a Muppets homage to it. There was a book that was a sequel written called The Last Temptation of Clarence Oddbody about Clarence the Angel.
This is not the one starring Robert Carradine, is it?
No.
Hmm.
And then don't you remember the female version on TV in the 70s with Marlo Thomas? It Happened One Christmas.
Yeah, I like that movie actually. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then it says, at least in my research, I don't know if this is true or not, that Bert and Ernie on Sesame Street were actually not named after.
Oh, come on,
Bert
they
and
were.
That's what one of the Muppets
Best
ears
friends for
claims,
life.
but I don't know if that's true. So let's talk about this movie. So tell me why you love it so much.
Well, obviously, when the movie comes on every year, right? And
Sure.
I think most people always remember the fact that they had watched it. Me, I actually watch it every year. And the biggest reason why I actually enjoy it is because even before I took psychology, this was like the power of one person making a difference, right? And it's about there are 2 types of people. There are the type of people that give, and there are the type of people that take. So George was a story about a man who gives unselfishly, right, without any idea of gain, and it's just because it's the right thing to do. I've never actually seen a movie that kind of like focuses on that kind of logic in life. You know what I mean? And But I found that maybe since I watched it as a child, it really stuck with me. Is that sometimes you just got to do the right thing without the thought of what you gain from it. And so we see this really long movie before he even comes to the realization of or discover what his life would be like. So they
Mhm.
really set up a great tapestry of a world. Very simply, man. Very simply. You just have to have the stamina to watch this film. And you do when you're watching it at home, not in the theater. I can understand why it flopped in the theater.
Mhm.
But so this man, George Bailey, who only wants to be somewhere else, who doesn't understand that, right? And
Sure.
he doesn't want to be rich. He doesn't want to be famous. He just wants to be somewhere else. He wants to explore. He wants to see the world. He wants to do things, but he's trapped. He's chained by responsibility.
Mhm.
So not just by his father dying, but by his brother being going off to college. He's chained by responsibility. And you know what? He just says, "Okay." And in that aspect is so when we finally see his whole world open up about all the things that he's done and he's never thinking about it once, not until he's given a chance when he's at the point of suicide, which is again, you got to think at the time, you're talking about suicide to a bunch of religious Protestants probably at that period of time,
Mhm.
and but they set it off perfectly by setting up that crazy opening of the lights in the skies, and I also like that as well, the depiction of religion in that. So when Clarence, comes down to stop him from committing suicide, because that seemed to be his main goal. They're like, tonight, this man is going to commit suicide, but you need to learn all about him. I'm talking like Joseph. And in
Right.
that fashion, we went on this journey with Clarence. And you're a filmmaker. It's like it's weird that you're following this disembodied protagonist, really, because you think you're supposed to be following
Mhm.
George, but you're really kind of like following Clarence, discovering George. So then, like when that comes down to the B, right? Clarence doesn't have a plan. He's just like, I'm just gonna go on my gut. So when
Mhm.
George said to him, "I wish I'd never been born," Clarence goes, "Oh, I see. Wait a minute, that could happen. That could work. What do you think?" And you're thinking, what does he think about what? What's going on? And then we got a second movie, the sequel in the in the first movie.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got
Yeah.
like you've never been born, and then all of a sudden, win, and stuff. But again, George can't stay mad at this old man. He's like, "What's up, fella? You need help or something?" So anyway, now he sees the whole world has changed. Imagine that, Dan. This is the whole point of this movie is if they could take you on that magical mystery tour and say, "Imagine this," and you're like, "Whoa, this is fucked up." All of a sudden, I don't have no wife, I don't have no kids, I don't have no house, I have nothing, because I don't exist. But
Mhm.
then I could actually see what happens, and what happens is my wife is, she's no maid. I have no kids, so you're on a roller coaster that is speeding up with this movie and everything. Bringing you all the way to the ending, right? That's where I cry. That's my breaking point in this movie.
Yeah.
I cry every time. I don't care what you got to say out there, right? Is that when that bell rings and Zuzu's in his arms and she said, "Teacher's right, an
Mhm.
angel with his wings," and he's like, that's right, honey. Oh, attaboy, Karis. It's such a cheesy, schmaltzy moment, but it comes after oh my God, I get the feelings. Everybody
Mhm.
that he unselfishly helped just comes in with all their treasures, right?
Mhm.
Now, obviously, they're not going to take him to jail. Sam Wainwright, he hauled Sam, sent him all of this money. Now, if it was me,
Mhm.
I'd be like, "Hey, so can I get my money back?" But everybody just sings, right? Nobody says, "Can I get my money back?" No, you just got all
No.
this money. So that is some good-natured stuff for us. And there's never
Yeah.
been a movie since that. What did you say it was 47?
I think it came out in the Christmas '46.
Yeah. either way, right? There's never been a
Yeah.
movie since that has topped this movie. It is my number one film of all time.
Mm.
Nothing's ever broken that from this movie because of the feels. So, the
I get it.
importance of man in his environment, the importance of giving and not taking, the importance of just doing things because it's the right thing to do. That's why I love this movie.
Sure. 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 It's interesting. Like as I've gotten older, and I watch this movie every year. And I don't know when, maybe like 10 or 12 years ago, who knows, but there was a certain point where, you get to a certain point in your life where you start reflecting, right?
Yeah, of course, we all do.
You
Yeah,
start thinking, what's that?
I say, yeah, we all do. Yeah, you're right.
And you start thinking about this movie, and then you start thinking about like, I wonder if I ever had that with me, and I've been able to point just personally in my life to a couple of times of like, well, if I wasn't around, this wouldn't have happened to that person, or that would have happened, and it wouldn't, things that I know that change people's lives.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? For the better.
yeah,
And it's and then what happens is that you start like thinking about bigger and broader things of like, well, like maybe if that person wasn't there at that time, then that thing wouldn't have been invented, and you know what I mean? You start
yeah,
like
yeah.
circles, the
What is my spoke on the wheel? What did I do?
right, right, exactly. So the it goes the concentric circles that go out, 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 as far as how people's lives all influence each other.
Right.
And I think nowadays, especially considering like the total like political and societal rift that's going on right now, this movie is actually more important than ever before, right? Because you see people who are like on the side of greed, and all the people who are kind of going along with the ride of that, you know what I mean? Because there's like this whole sort of philosophy of like, screw everybody, take what's yours, don't help anybody out, and if they all drop dead, who cares? You know what I mean? It's like this, but the world shouldn't work that way. Um, so I think that it's the same thing that emotional impact that's I think it's had on you, that's had on me, that's had on everybody. I also think that the other kind of sort of theme that's sort of less talked about though, which is interesting because Frank Capra wasn't actually that guy. He was a pretty conservative guy, but a lot of people look at this movie as almost like an anti-capitalist movie, Not that it's a communist movie, but it's like it's
A little
definitely
bit.
like, but it's definitely like everybody, into, helping each other out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're like a conservative guy who just loves business and money, at least in theory, you should not like this movie.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It is. I believe it is a communist movie.
Do you?
Because it's 47 or 46, whatever you want to call it. Because 4 years later is the McCarthyism. Is the McCarthy here?
Right, but Capra was not a communist. He was a conservative.
No. I'm not saying. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say. I'm not saying Capra is a communist. I said it's a communist movie because of what you just said. I mean, there's that whole scene where George and Mary are in front of the New Potter's Field with Mr. What do you call him? Linguini. What is
Martini.
Martini. Linguini.
Mr. Linguini.
Oh, Mr. Linguini, here's some wine. Because they're like, all of these houses, all your money is invested in other people's houses. So when George said to them, look, I don't have no money. I did no money here. It's in Joel's house or it's in John's house. Do you know what I mean? And then when they're giving off like, oh, this is the wine and the wheat, for you to be plentiful. It's a communist philosophy. And the deal is the fact that, like, I live in England, as we already know, right? But, where you have free healthcare. And they've always had that. And in that aspect is that the idea of the government helping its people is a good thing. But to Americans who grow up in a capitalist society, that's not the ideal. So they want you to think of communism as a dirty word because they're like, hey, it's Russian. It's Russian. And I don't live in Russia, bro. I live in England. You know what I mean? So like in that fashion is that if you want to take care of the people of your society, Why the hell not? You know, what do you need billions upon billions if you only have to spend millions upon thousands to help others? You don't lose anything from that. And
Of
actually, at the
course.
end of the day, it's not your money; it's corporate monies in that way, in that kind of fashion. But so anyway, let's not go too far on it. I'm just feeling
No,
that
no, no, no. But
I just
it
feel
is a
like the
theme that,
belief system of the movie, the theme, is about helping
mm,
others unselfishly,
sure.
and you couldn't do that if you were a capitalist.
Now, do you remember where you were when you first saw it? Like, how old were you, and at whose house did you first see it?
Wow, I didn't expect that
But,
question.
but also remember back there was that whole copyright thing where they took the copyright back. But back, when we grew up, it was in public domain. So remember they
Mm.
would play it like 30, 40 times, like every hour of every day between Thanksgiving and Christmas. They'd play that movie,
It's
right?
like we were talking. It was like we were talking the other day about it. I'm pretty sure I saw this movie on Channel 9 or Channel 11 in New York,
Mm,
which is not a public access channel, but it's like an independent, isn't it? It's not the major
yeah.
brand. And it more than likely would have been Thanksgiving because this is more of a Thanksgiving movie than a Christmas movie, even though it plays in between those times. But as you just said, because of repeat shows, it played pretty much all the time. So I can't remember my first time seeing the movie, but I know it would.
Mhm.
I would have wanted it to be being in my grandmother's house, in Harlem, and Polo Grounds where the Mets baseball field first started out,
Mhm.
and watching it, waiting for dinner. You know what I mean? Because I was that kid who sat on the floor. I don't know about you. I was that kid who sat on the floor in front of our
Yes.
big telly with the big rabbit ears sticking out of it. Everybody's all warming about, but because you're like the youngest in the family, it's kind of like, yeah,
And
just
by the
dump
way,
them in front of the
a big
TV.
telly, a big telly back then was what, 19 inches,
And black
right?
and white.
And black and white. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, more likely I was just dumped on the floor in front of the TV watching that movie for the
Yeah.
first time.
So probably the same for me, like 8, 9, or 10 years old, at my grandmother's Thanksgiving or Christmas, channel 9 or 11, most likely up in Co-op City in the Bronx. You know?
And we didn't plan this. We didn't plan this, but see, because that was the thing, wasn't it? Television was like the big thing. I mean, it started in the 50s, but it raised in the 70s, and 80s, and it was the babysitter, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever TV set you had was the babysitter for the babies
Yep.
and everything, and that was good family fare that would come on. And yeah, because I
But
remember
I also
you,
remember that. I'm sorry. I also remember they had like they had those 16 millimeter prints. Like the quality was always kind of like It's a Wonderful Life. Any of those old movies was always kind of shitty. Like it was
yeah,
dark and scratchy and stuff like that. So I always, like that memory of like how those movies looked. They always seemed to be they looked that way. And then when they finally restored them, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I was like,
yeah, but
you know,
yeah, but see, the thing about it is that us being kids of that period, right?
mm,
We have more respect for black and white than they do now.
sure.
So it's a black and white film, it's a family film, it's holiday film. So in that aspect is that when they colorize that, forget about it.
Oh
Forget
God.
about it. Well, I don't even know why you brought it up. When they colorize it, forget about it. It's sacrilegious to me, being a child at that time. I
Mm,
respect black and white, and I still do. I
mm.
still love when a black and white film comes on your cable channel or whatever, and I just kind of like want to sink into my chair or couch, and I'm taken aback by it.
Sure.
And so, last thing I'll say is that time didn't mean anything to us when it came to movies. So this is a 3-hour movie, right? And it wasn't one of those like two drinks like you are now. Two drinks, I'm in the bathroom,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
It was that kind of thing that was what the movie experience was. A long film that had character. I mean, you mentioned like William Wyler and
George Stevens.
George Stevens. I didn't know that they were involved in this because those are both directors. So in anything, they should have been rivals. I know they probably would work with the same company and everything, and we're used to that, like say with portfolio films and all that.
They
But
were like partners in the
yeah,
movie.
no. I dig it, but I mean, like, I just think that's interesting. It's not like the United Artists where they were like four actors put together a production company. You
Right.
know, I mean, this was, I mean, it sounded interesting, and I didn't know that
They
Captain was
only did
down with
one
them like
other
that.
movie. They only did one other movie, and then it was like, it turned out, I think that what I read online, that it was sort of a little bit of a tax dodge
Obviously,
because basically the way it was is that like because like the income tax rates were so high on people who made a lot of money back then, they were like almost 90%.
yeah,
That like if you had a company and they paid you through the company and however it's structured, they got paid. The amount of taxes they had to pay was a lot less. So I think it was sort of set up in a way for them, like, hey, let's see if this works and we can save money on
yeah,
taxes.
yeah.
You know, so but
Well, you know, let's also talk about the women in this movie because I mean we are of a simpler time. We are right, pretty much right at the end of the war where women used to like be like Rosie the Riveter and you know the land
mm,
girls where they worked while the men were at war and they did pretty well. And then all of a sudden, the men came home and they
mm,
started building up these little cottage suburb places, you know, around factories. And the women were told and relegated to become housewives, you know,
yep.
and like that's your role now, and sit and love it. But this is right before that, you know.
Mm,
And I even like that we had that scene in the movie where they showed the women working at home and you know on a home front and stuff, you know, where they were
mm.
making parts and Sam Wainwright was building plastics. So we had the women in this movie, you know. I mean, obviously you got to talk about it from the love aspect because all the way from one of my, I think it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, right? What do you think one of my favorite scenes in the movie is?
Oh, you know when Sam Wainwright's on the phone, right? And the
Now he
mother's
hauled
upstairs.
Sam. Now, no way. So it of course it
Oh, okay,
involves Mary. So like,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like you got, and they're both like they're about to kiss. That
oh
scene,
no,
no?
no, that was uncomfortable. I don't know why it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable as a kid. It was uncomfortable as an adult. You know what I mean? Because it was very uncomfortable. But this is a wholesome movie, man. It's Noah Rockwell. But no, my favorite scene is when George, you know, you can't hear. He's in the solo shop with the young Mary and the young Violet.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
And
yeah,
then Violet's like, I like him. And Mary like, and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But when she leans, when Mary leans over and whispers in his ear, says, George
Mm,
Bailey, I love you to the day I die.
uh-huh.
Who doesn't want that girl? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then
gets the girl.
and then when she preps the house and his boys
Mm,
come together to help prep the house,
mm,
George comes home and she says, welcome home, Mr. Bailey. I'm dead,
mm.
bro. I'm dead. I'm dead. I, you know, even being married forever, I still never had that. And like in
Mm.
that fashion, is just that you know, it's like you can't
Ah,
compare. You can't compare to young Mary Hatch. I'm telling you right
mm,
now, bro. You can't. You can't. When she's like, I got the money right here. You know what I mean? And she goes around town to get all the people. To, oh, Mary did it, George. Mary did it. She went around and got everybody. Oh, who doesn't want that woman? You know what
oh
I mean?
man.
But then,
So he, yeah,
wait. On the flip side,
yeah,
there's Violet Beck.
yeah,
And
yeah.
who doesn't
Well,
want that woman? Right? You know? And being the 40s, you
for a little
know,
while, for a little
well, I
while.
mean, being the 40s, you know, they couldn't say that she was a hooker. They couldn't say she was a
Mm,
prostitute, but pretty much she was a hooker and a prostitute. You
yeah.
know what I mean? And I love, I love it when Bert and Ernie are watching her walk away, and then the other guy's watching, and the horn honks,
Mm.
and then what is it? Ernie says, "Would you?" And he's like, "Yes, yes, yes, we would, we would." And Bert goes, "I think I got to go home and see the wife." That's fine. You know, I'm sorry, but the women in this movie, so simple but so perfect. What about
That's
yourself?
funny. Well, I was going to say, like, here's a trivia question for you. So, at Martini's, right? You know, the bartender.
Sheldon Leonard.
Oh, you know, okay, you know that.
Come on,
But a lot of
bro.
people
I know this
don't.
movie. Sheldon Leonard
I
became a
know, I know.
producer. He worked
The
with
guy who talks like
Dick Van
this,
Dyke.
you know?
Yeah. Because yeah. Can you be Italian, Sheldon? No, I'm Jewish. Uh,
I can be Italian if you want me to.
yeah. Hey, look at me. I'm
So,
giving out wings. God, terrible. But no, I love that scene. Yeah, Sheldon Leonard turned out to be a big TV producer, worked on the Dick Van Dyke shows and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, and then the characters are Sheldon Leonard and a Big Bang Theory named after him.
Oh my God! Yeah, I never put that two and two together.
You never did?
No,
That's real trivia.
well done, Sheldon and Leonard. Oh my God,
Sheldon Leonard. You know, that's deliberate. Chuck Lorre did that, you know, in honor of him. So
wow,
he's
Chuck
the guy.
Lorre, you man.
So there's the It's a Wonderful Life connection to the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Stretch as it is, stretch that as it is, you know. And then I was just trying to think about like, and what about what about the? I know you talked a little bit about him before, but what about the character of Clarence? Anything more about him?
I mean, the funny bits about Clarence was the fact is that they managed to get this really ruddy faced old actor. I don't know his past or anything, and because to me he always was just Clarence. I actually didn't respect the man enough to figure out what his actual acting name was. But I mean,
think his name was, and I'll look it up while we're talking. I think his name was Henry Travers.
That's right. It is
Am I
Henry
right?
Travis. No, you're all right.
And he was like one of those, and he was one of those guys who, guess what? Guess where he was born? He was born in he's actually English. He was born in Prudhoe.
Oh, right. Okay.
In Northumberland. Where's Northumberland compared to you?
I live on Northumberland Street. No, I think it's Wales.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but my street is called Northumberland Street, yeah. But I believe it's Wales.
It's Wales, okay.
Yeah.
So he was there, and so he was quite old by the time he did this movie.
Oh yeah.
But
was he known as comedy or anything like that?
You know what? I mean, he was born in 1874, so his first movie wasn't until
1874. Wow.
Yeah, so his first movie wasn't until 1933. So he was already like 60. Almost 60.
Yeah.
He was almost 60 by the time he started acting in movies. I think he was a theater actor in England for a long time, then made his way. So he was a theater actor for years, and then eventually, made his way into movies. Looks like he acted in a lot of like westerns, but he was in Mrs. Miniver, Shadow of a Doubt, The Bells of St. Mary. But It's a Wonderful Life was like, his last film was 1949, so it was like his last well-known film. So he's just one of the character actors, that there's so many of them. People like, oh, I've seen that guy, but you don't really know their name that well.
Well, because special effects, it was like early days of optical effects, as they call them. I really love the scene where he's trying to distract the cop, Bert the cop, so that way George could get away. And he's begging for Joseph to help him. And he disappears. And then Bert's like, what the? Nothing in my hand. It was a really good magic trick for the time. But I think what was curious to me the most, and I'll ask you, who the hell was Joseph?
Oh, you mean the boss angel?
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, usually, like we always get, when we deal with angel stories, we always get Gabriel or Michael, and everything else like that. And I just thought it was rather curious.
I guess the screenwriters just decided as a lark, let's just give him a boss.
Yeah, but it was weird though, because he was like, here, sit down. What am I going to sit
Remember?
on? Oh, all right, you haven't got your wings yet. But then, I know
But
the
it was
voice
like
from
Angel
back in
Second
school.
Class. Remember, he was like Angel
Yeah, yeah.
Second Class.
Angels
You
and
know,
Glenn.
I know
I'm
it's a
glad
little
you
weird
haven't
to
got
think.
your wings.
It's a little weird to think, like in the afterlife, that like there still would be like a boss, like some dude in charge, like of who gets their wings, and like you're working for somebody and you gotta earn it. Like, dude's dead. He's an angel. Shouldn't he? He already earned it.
It wasn't just that, but it was
Yeah.
also the fact that I sit down. What do you mean sit down? I can't sit down. I'm okay. But
Well, you know what the other cool thing about this movie, I was as we were talking about some simple special effects. It never dawned upon me before, but this is, you would call this a fantasy movie, right?
Yeah.
On one level or another. And think about it. Here's a fantasy movie that has, outside of the simple stuff with the star field, basically, right? And a couple other very small it has no visual effects.
Well, except for
No
that
visual.
scene where Clarence disappears. That's what I was trying to
I know.
say. I mean,
But I know, but I'm saying it's a real testament to the storytelling.
yeah, yeah,
That this is a movie that proves, like, you could do a fantasy movie and you really don't need a lot of visual effects. You in fact need very little, because if you have a great story and great characters, right?
yeah,
You can get around it, and it does it, brilliantly. So
yeah.
look, I think we both agree that this is I know this is your favorite movie of all time. It definitely is one of my favorite. It's definitely both our favorite Christmas movies. Um, and I kind of, one thing I hope that, like, whatever this, every generation seems to discover it when they're a kid. I just kind of wondered now whether this generation is, or or are they kind of disconnected from it?
That's a very good question because I know that I'm constantly looking at it every year. And I know
Mm.
that the only other people who know or are aware of this movie are adults, like within, tiptoeing around my age range. But as far as like my son or kids of his age, I don't think they really tap into this. It really depends on their parents. And I know I probably tried to force Jackson to watch this at some point. But and I think that's what it is. I think there might be, it depends on the parenting really. Do you still feel that this movie should be passed on to your children? And I guess that's the question. Do people
And what
out
about
there
it?
feel that they should be showing this film to their children?
Right. And do you think in England it has as much of an impact as it's had in America?
No,
Because in
I
America,
mean,
it's like it's embedded in like our Christmas culture, you know?
yeah, I mean, like when people complain about it, right? They complain about it because they complain that it's always on. And like to
Mm.
me, I'm just like that type of person. I don't know about you, but I'm not that type of person that like Magnificent Seven, right? I'm like that type of person that I don't look in my library of films to look at it, but when it's on the telly, I sit down and I watch it.
Right.
And that's the same thing. What It's Wonderful Life. When I'm like zipping through channels and It's a Wonderful Life is on, and I'll go back and I'll watch it. I don't
Right.
know about you if you do stuff
I do
like
the
that,
same
but
thing. I actually prefer to like want to see it when it's on TV. Like, it's because
but
it
it's not
becomes
like you
like,
pull it off the shelf.
right.
You know what I mean?
The
It's not
name of
like,
the
hey,
show.
you
Yeah,
just
I
pull
know.
this down off the shelf and everything.
Well, you know what? You know why? Because to me, it makes it that much more special. You know what I mean? Like, I saw it on TV. I got this one chance to see it. You know what I mean? And I'm not
But
going to
that's
see
why
it
that's
again.
why I mean about when you're just flipping channels and it's on. It's to me, it's one of those flip channel movies where if it's
Yeah.
on,
Oh,
you stop and
yeah,
watch it.
it's on. It's on. Yay.
Yeah,
It's on.
because it's so embedded in your memory that you don't need to watch it from the beginning. I could just pick up from here. Oh look, George is in that crazy football outfit, so he just went into the pool with
Right.
Mary and everything. Oh my God!
Right.
And how salacious was that scene where he steps on the robe and then Mary is naked in the bush?
Oh, yeah. Well, for that time, sure. Right.
That's what I mean. How salacious was that, Dan? I mean, there's Mary Ann in the bush. And George is like, what should I do? I think everybody will be on my side. She's like,
I,
how dare
I,
you,
I,
George? Your mother will be so ashamed.
I see what got 10-year-old Chase excited.
Pretty much. Yeah, you know, like, oh, there's a woman
Well, I
in
can't
the
see
room.
anything else, but like I can
I don't need to see
fantasize.
anything else. I can fantasize.
Yeah.
Fantasize.
So we're gonna close out this episode. We're each gonna reveal to each other our top 5 other favorite Christmas movies of all time.
Yeah, all right.
So
Yep. So,
you want to
because
go
usually,
first?
on the shelf involves us talking
Doing
about three
3
films.
movies.
So, like, this was an interesting idea. Um, I marked it down. Like, why don't you start? Are we gonna do one and one, like that kind of thing?
No, you could go through your list, and I'll go through my list. And if you just want to say a brief, a couple words about
Okay, yeah,
each
it's
one.
just that I have to find my list. I know it's in the book, and
It's usually hardwired in your brain, dude.
well, it in a way it is, but then you made me in a way you made me like think about it. All right,
Oh
well,
yeah.
obviously number one is It's a Wonderful Life, right? So obviously that's number
Well,
one.
what? But did you do the other? Did you do 5 others? I did 5.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
have
yeah.
the. Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna start from one because really starting from
Oh, but you
less.
did 7. Okay. So
Well, I figured you'd probably say that's not a movie.
that's okay.
So the second one is Miracle on 34th Street, obviously, and the original, no remakes and stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
and see, fuck man, yeah, I actually wrote this list down. I'm kind of like pissed off now. Um, okay, then now I have to go with Home Alone,
Okay.
right? And see. Okay, what I did was I said it was going to be Charlie Brown Christmas, and I knew you would say that's not a movie. And I'm like, to me, as a kid, it was a movie.
That's fine. If we were counting that, I would put that on the list for both of us. So yeah, Charlie Brown Christmas for both.
and then I have the big debate,
The
which
what?
is I have the big debate, the
Big
big debate.
debate. Is that with Denzel Washington?
No, no, Die Hard and Lethal Weapon.
Oh, Die Hard.
Yeah, I said I had the big debate, Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. And stuff
Okay.
because people always argue that they're not Christmas movies, and I think they are, and so does
Uh,
everybody else. But like, there's always people go,
uh,
"Yeah, it's
I,
not a Christmas
we,
movie."
I mean, it's sort of like on the border.
Oh,
That's
okay.
sort
Here's
of
my
like,
list.
because you could say like LA Confidential is a Christmas movie too.
I could not, and I just watched that recently. Uh,
Yeah, but it starts at Christmas time.
okay, last one. Oh no, two more. Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. Now, some people could
Okay.
argue that this is a Thanksgiving movie, right? But it's actually a Christmas movie because he was trying to go home for Christmas, not exactly for Thanksgiving, but he didn't make it for Thanksgiving. He made it for
Uh-huh.
Christmas because his whole journey was that. And then the last one is Christmas Vacation. Chevy Chase, the third in
So
the vacation movies and everything like that. But who doesn't want to be like Charles Griswold when he's trying to build his whole Christmas village around his house?
wow. So you know what's kind of crazy is like you went for a bunch of movies that's like has Christmas in it, but it's not hardwired into Christmas. And I went the other way.
I thought I
Well,
did.
like Home Alone takes place, but Christmas time. But he's, I mean,
Come
Die
on, it's a
Hard, Lethal
Christmas movie.
Weapon.
Come on, they're Christmas movies.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. So I'm shocked that none of mine are yours.
Well, seriously, you have to have Miracle on 34th Street and This Wonderful Life. You have to.
Well, It's a Wonderful Life is their number one, right? Miracle on 34th Street. I went with my top 5 after that. So Miracle 34th Street would have been number 6.
Yeah.
But okay, so in no particular order.
And no Hallmark movies.
No Hallmark movies. Number 1 is the 1970 version of A Christmas Carol with Albert Finney, the musical version called Scrooge.
Wait a minute. Is that with Bill Murray or no? You said Albert Finney.
Albert Finney. where it's like a young Albert Finney, but he plays like a 70-year-old Scrooge, and he's like phenomenal. You ever see it? He used to play on
No.
TV. Yeah, when we were kids, it used to play on TV in the 70s, 80s, all the time in the United States. Then went out of syndication. But they like it's a huge like.
Sorry, that's
Jackson.
Jackson. Go ahead.
You never seen it?
No, but what I'm upset about is you reminded me, and I'm going to be hit by a lightning bolt. I should have said A Christmas Carol, but with Alistair Sim. That was my mother's go-to film. Every Christmas, she demanded, nobody move. We're going to watch this movie. And I don't know why, you know what I mean? But that movie always reminds me of my mom. But yeah, when you said Christmas Carol, I was like, how come I didn't have that on my list? But go ahead. So no, I've never seen the Albert Finney version.
There's so many versions of it too. There must be.
There is. There's a Henry Winkler version. There's the Perry version. You know, it's the most overused, overplayed movie, which is why Alistair Sim version is considered to be the quintessential one at the top of the apex.
Yeah,
everything else are just, you know, carbon copies.
Elf.
Yeah, okay, right. I don't know why. Yeah, okay.
But I think for Elf, really, at the end of the day, is like for the Rankin Bass stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
Bad Santa.
How could you dare sacrilegiously put this on a Christmas list?
Because I love how cynical
it is. Billy Bob Thornton?
Yeah.
You love this movie?
I really do. I really like it a lot. Yeah, because it gets to the dark side of me. Gremlins.
Can't get them wet after dark. I don't know why. See, look at that, man. When you asked me, I didn't bother going looking on Wikipedia and shit. So I was just only going from my memory. But yeah, that's a good one.
Gremlins, and of course, what plays ad nauseum 20 million times a year in the United States? It's the most overplayed thing here in the United States, over and over and over and over and over again. They'll do marathons on it. Christmas Story.
Oh, right, with the gun, BB gun. But I mean, I don't know if you could say Peter Billingsley. I don't know if you could say that it's played over and over and over again. It used to be.
And here in the States? Oh my God.
Oh, well, you know what? I haven't been there for 20 years, so I guess you're probably right.
Oh my God. It's become like they've done a musical out of it. I mean, it's crazy. I love that. But
Peter Billingsley was in Spider-Man Far From Home. As the tech guy for
was he?
Yeah, he was the tech guy who what's his name? The Ironmonger, Jeff Bridges, who yelled at him, and then he was in Spider-Man Far From Home as Jake Gyllenhaal's tech guy and everything. Right. So yeah, that's actually Peter Billingsley, the kid with the rifle.
No, I know, but he's like John. He was like John Favreau's producing partner for years.
Yeah. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
And they're best friends. So I think John Favreau says, "Get my friend in that movie."
Yeah. I don't doubt it at all.
But I love this movie. I think it's because it came out in 82, 83. So it came out when I was 12 or 13 years old. So it's like, and there really weren't that many Christmas movies back then. Also, I love the fact that it sort of has this ode to us Jews. They're not Jewish, but that they have to go have Chinese food at the end of the movie for Christmas. I don't know if you remember that, because that's what us Jews do on Christmas. We should take out Chinese food. But here's the thing: I never knew this, that Bob Clark, who directed Christmas Story, and he directed Christmas Story.
And Black Christmas.
Yeah. That Bob Clark actually directed a sequel to this that I never even knew was released, called "It Runs in the Family."
I've heard of It Runs in the Family.
It was Charles Grodin. It came out in the mid-90s. They got a totally different cast. Kieran Culkin played Peter Billingsley's role.
Wow.
And it bombed, dude. It was it takes place in the summer after summer of 41, after Christmas Story. And if you look up on Wikipedia, it made $70,000. It was a total kind of just goes to show you they had the same writer, the same director, shot in the same town, same people, but totally different cast.
Wow.
And it just shows you the cat, you know.
Mhm.
So
And
anyway, that's
I've heard of it.
I never heard of it. So that's my list.
Wow.
I checked it twice.
And are you naughty or are you nice? But either
Oh,
way,
that
it's good
remains
that like the lists are
to be
two
seen.
totally different lists.
Yeah, it's cool. I think I agree with like most of the stuff. I mean, I love most of those movies on your list anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. So before we close out though, I mean, you acting like you never heard of this debate about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not.
No,
Really? So then, is it a Christmas movie to you?
no,
No.
no. It's an
So
action movie that takes place during Christmas, but it's not really a Christmas movie. You know what I
now
mean?
I'm not going to defend Die Hard, right? But Lethal Weapon is the damn Christmas movie, and people keep saying that it's not because of the action bit. But like that final scene where he goes to Murtaugh's house, he say, "Can I bring a
Mm.
friend?" And then he whistles for his dog to come out, and then the dog goes in, and then everybody's all running around, and, and Danny Glover's just like, "Oh my God," you know what I mean? It's a
Hmm.
great feel good moment, in which is what Christmas movies should be. Now, give it or not, even though Die Hard had the songs, it wasn't a feel good moment. So I guess I could agree that it's not a Christmas movie. But
Mm.
anyway, it's a debate that happens every Christmas time online, whether or not it's a Christmas movie. And I'm like, how come nobody's talking about Lethal Weapon? Whatever.
Actually, I haven't seen Lethal Weapon in a while. I got to watch it
Yeah, man.
again.
I mean, the original is always the best and stuff like that. You know what I
Right,
mean?
sure.
But I mean, I guess, like as we say, we have to put this one movie and our subsequent other movies back up on the shelf. Closing out this particular episode, welcoming Dan back into the fold and everything like that. And hopefully, our next episode we're gonna do Abbott and Costello, right?
Right. So, should we tell everybody Merry Christmas?
We should tell everybody Merry Christmas, but also just remind you that we're having a big Christmas gathering on the 19th, and then hopefully we'll bring Zan in by via
Mm.
Zoom and everything. Well, with our new shows here at Big Condo Online. It's no longer Big Condo Radio, by the way. That is Big Condo Online. So go for it and wish them all a Merry Christmas, you
Merry Christmas,
guys.
everybody, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
From New York.
All right, man, and peace out, everyone.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.